Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel Be Yourself. This is Dr. Rajni and today we will be discussing about the biomolecular interaction with respect to the ionic bond. In our previous class we already have discussed about the covalent bond with respect to the biomolecular interaction. So let's start with this. So very simple introduction about the ionic bond. We all know that the ionic bond is formed between electronegative and electropositive elements. So here you might remember your +2 level studies that how this is a periodic table and how this group and pairs represent different types of elements and different properties are being associated with it. So here there is a property of alkali metals and alkali earth metal to form ionic bond with to that of the non-metals and the halogen elements. So basically very brief introduction about the ionic bond is that it is the complete sharing of electron between the electronegative and electropositive elements. But in covalent bond what we have seen that there was partial sharing of electron and it completely depend on the electron density present around it. Here in case of ionic bond also the bond is been formed to complete their octet. So let's have the example of NaCl. This is a very common example in your class. Also you might have, your teachers might have taught you about this example. So here we know that the atomic number of sodium is 11 and when it will undergo electronic configuration we have this type of electronic configuration, and in the last class as we have seen in the case of chlorine the electronic configuration of chlorine is 287 and this is the key element form of configuration. Now to get their octet filled sodium needs 7 more electrons while chlorine need only 1 electrons. So it is very difficult for the sodium to gain 7 more electrons to get a octet complete, whereas here it is quite easy for the chlorine to just get only 1 electron and get their octet complete. So to minimize the energy here sodium, what sodium will do, instead of seeking for the electron, what sodium will do, sodium will donate its electron toward the chlorine. So because of there is a loss of 1 electron, then this will impart a positive charge on sodium, whereas the chlorine will be gaining 1 electron, so the net negative charge will be there in case of chlorine, and this will establish a electrovalent bond or the ionic bond between the NaCl or sodium chloride, which is a very common compound present in your kitchen also in the form of common salt. So these were very brief introduction about the ionic bond. But what the role of ionic bondings or these ions inside our body for the biomolecules? So here I have given you a snapshot of a research paper. So you can see how recent these topics are. This was published in 2014 and here it is saying understanding nucleic acid and ion interaction. So you can see here even in 2014 also the researchers are still curious to know about the interaction between the ionic interaction between the biological compound and the ions. So here I have given the example here of the nucleic acid and ionic interaction. So you know that the nucleic acid is having side portion is having phosphorus and their oxygen group is carrying the negative charge. So to stabilize these charges there is a requirement of the positive charged ions, which is the magnesium ion. So here magnesium ion play a very significant role in the DNA ion interaction. Another example I will take here is the DNA protein structure. So you know that even when there is a replication of DNA or transcription of DNA to RNA, or there is a translation of RNA to protein, in all this structure there is a requirement of protein, and this protein bind to a specific position over the DNA and with the help of certain bonding. So what these bondings are, these will not form the covalent bonding, because if covalent bonding will be formed then it will be very difficult for the DNA to get separated from the protein. So there need some weak bond interaction between DNA and the protein, and all these bonds can be ionic interaction, can be hydrophobic interaction, can be hydrogen bonding interactions. So here in the general metabolic process or general phenomenon inside our cells also, we need ionic bond interaction between the DNA and protein. Even when two proteins are interacting with one another, in that case also we need to form the ionic bond. So though the covalent bond is they are responsible to form a functional protein to provide tertiary structure to the protein, which is the functional form of protein, but there is also requirement of ionic bond for their weak interaction to carry out their function. Very common example is the interaction between the antibody and the antigens. They will not undergo covalent bond interaction, rather there is a requirement of weak bond interaction, which can be ionic bond, hydrogen bond, or hydrophobic interaction can be there. So these are the places where ionic interaction is very much important, or ionic bond is very much important inside our cells in the biomolecules. Not only it is limited to the protein and nucleic acid, rather lipids are also there which are associated with the protein, as I will give you example of the plasma membrane. Here again a review snapshot I have presented to you. You can also go through this review if you want to know more about how the protein lipid interaction is a study material for today's era. So we know that the plasma membrane is containing a certain marker, and there are certain protein which is embedded in the plasma membrane. It can be integral protein, it can be peripheral protein. Integral protein can be there, which will be there will be small portion on the both side of taking out from both sides of plasma membrane, which will be termed as the transmembrane protein. So there is also a definite bond relation between the protein and lipid interaction. So in this review, the researchers have well explained how the acidic phospholipids of the minor groups species perform a major functions, which is not possible when if it will not be interacted with the protein. How these acidic phospholipids ionically interact with the polybasic proteins. So to be in the functional form, there is a requirement to establish a certain bonding between the lipid and protein in the plasma membrane. Though it is not only limited to the plasma membrane, in other cell organelles also there is a requirement of establishment of ionic or other weak bond interaction. During this interaction, there may be a requirement of other ions like calcium ion to stabilize all these bondings. So we can see here how ionic bonding are very much important for our biological life, how it establishes the structure and function of the biological world. So this was all about the ionic interaction. In the previous class we have studied about the biological or biomolecular interaction with respect to the covalent bond, and this time ionic bond. Now we will shift toward the hydrophobic and hydrophilic interaction, which will be basically associated with the water molecules, how the polarity of the compound will be remain functional, how we can change the hydrophobicity or hydrophilicity of the compound or the interaction with the other polar compound, and how it will hamper our functioning inside our body. So don't forget to subscribe and share my channel. Till then, goodbye and have a nice day.